Welcome to another Juju live session. This time around about Egyptian folklore. Feel welcome to share your questions around the theme of Egyptian dance, in particular Egyptian folklore. In this Juju live session, I have selected a few questions around the theme of Egyptian folklore that I've received in more than 20 years of career in the field of Egyptian dance, first in Egypt and then around the world. And before I read those questions and before I give you my answers, let me do the protocol, which is presentation. My name is Joana Saahirah. I'm a world-renowned Oriental dancer, teacher, choreographer, author, and I'm also the creator of the pioneering Joana Saahirah's World and Joana Saahirah's Online Dance School, delivering authentic Egyptian dance, personal discovery, and empowerment. If you want to be a part of our global community, feel welcome to join our newsletter, Joana Saahirah's newsletter. It is free and fabulous. And once we close this live session, I'm gonna put the link to the newsletter, the link you can use to subscribe, in the comments to the session. And now, without further ado, I'm gonna say good morning again. Good morning for me, at least. I'm gonna take a sip of my coffee. It's a beautiful Sunday right here where I am in paradise, and we're gonna dive into the questions I have selected. And the first question is a question, and it's also a problem, which is, what is the difference between Egyptian Oriental dance and Egyptian folklore? Why do I say this is a problem? Because so many dancers don't even know there is a difference. And that's the problem, okay? So throughout the years, when I was working in Egypt as a performer, but also working and studying with Mahmoud Reda, the father of Egyptian folklore, and in a little second I'm going to tell you about him and his legacy, of course, I remember that so many dancers used to come to his studio searching for Oriental dance, but presuming that he was the indicated person for it. And how many times I had this conversation with Mahmoud. So he would come to me and he would tell me, Joana, I have a group from China, or I have a group from Japan, I have a group from Spain. They come to learn raqs sharqi, Oriental dance, what people erroneously call belly dance. But they come for me, I cannot teach them, you teach them. This is actually how I started to teach groups of foreigners, because Mahmoud would pass those groups on to me, precisely because dancers came with a very confused idea in their minds. They did not know what they were coming for, actually, okay? So I would end up teaching them Oriental dance, and Mahmoud would teach them folklore, which is exactly what he did, okay? So the difference between raqs sharqi, the dance of the East, Oriental dance, aka belly dance, whatever you may like to call it, and Egyptian folklore is very clear, at least to me. There is a clear difference or differences, but it's also something of a connection, okay? What do I mean by this? Egyptian Oriental dance, raqs sharqi, is connected with the folklore. They complement each other. They speak with each other. They have common elements. They have common sensibilities. They have common identities, okay? So although there is a clear distinction between raqs sharqi and folklore, there is also a link between these two things, okay? Now, what are the main differences? It is hard to put into words, but I will try, okay? I'm usually good at it. I'm a little bit tired today, so let's see if my brain is going to collaborate, okay? So I would say that Oriental dance is more like the standard dance of the people. What do I mean by this? Is that every Egyptian has a contact or has some kind of practice of Oriental dance, of raqs sharqi. People from Upper Egypt, people from Iskandaraya, yani Alexandria, people from Nubia, all of them know raqs sharqi. I don't know any part of Egypt where you don't find raqs sharqi. Everybody knows. It's like the base language for Egyptians. Folklore is a little bit more specific. Okay, so we have different kinds of folkloric dances in Egypt, aside from Raqs al-Sharqi, aside from Oriental dance. And even in Raqs al-Sharqi, we have sub-styles, okay? So if we speak about Raqs al-Baladi, or modern Egyptian Oriental dance, or classical Egyptian Oriental dance, or Sha'abi, we're talking about slightly different styles within one style, okay? But I'm not going to focus there because this Juju live session is about folklore. So what are the folkloric styles that we have to distinguish from Raqs al-Sharqi? We have, for instance, Nubian dance from Nubia. Okay, that is the extreme south of Egypt, which is considered the extreme upper Egypt because the Nile is born in the north going south. So the more you go low in Egypt, the more you go down, the more we consider it upper Egypt. Okay, so Luxor is upper Egypt, but if you go to Nubia, which is below Luxor, next to Sudan, you have the extreme upper Egypt, all right, in the south. So we have Nubia or Nubian dance. We have Hagala, the Bedouin dance from the desert. We also have Saidi and the Tahtib that gave birth to Saidi. We have Mambuti from the Suez Canal, from Ismailia, from Port Said. We have a creation from Mahmoud Reda, Iskandarani style with Malaya. This is not officially a part of folklore initially, but Mahmoud created this style. And in a second, I'm going to tell you about that. So we have different styles within the world or the colorful palette of Egyptian dance, okay? Now, the differences really depend on the style that we're speaking with and speaking of. Every style has a very specific flavor. So when I'm doing Nubian dance, I am more relaxed, I am more down to earth, I am more subtle, I am sweet, I'm like a breeze, the breeze of Aswan, okay? There is a sensibility, a posture, a mood for Nubian dance that reflects the character of Nubian people and the landscape of Nubia, okay? And the culture and the way of life and the rhythm of life. If we speak about Hagala from the Bedouin of the desert, there is also a kind of actic passion, a kind of dynamics and intensity that has to do with the people of the desert. There is also a kind of groundedness that is very connected to the desert sand. Okay, there are steps that are connected with the fact that usually Bedouins dance in the sand, they dance in the desert. So there is a reflection between the Hagala, the Bedouin dance, and the Bedouin people and their way of life and their landscape and how they live and how they move in the desert. Okay, if we speak about the Saidi and the Tahtib, we're clearly talking about Saidi people and their character. Everything is so vertical, everything is so assertive, so honorable, so strong. There is this strength of character of the warrior. At our school, at Joana Saahirah's online dance school, we have a course on Saidi that I call the path of the warrior, because there is this mentality of word of honor, of strength, of honesty, of a strong, good character that have everything to do with Saidi people. Okay, when we speak about Mambuti and we go to the shores of the Canal of Suez and we dive into the world of the fishermen, because that's what Mambuti is about, we're also gonna see dynamics and movements and postures and feelings related to the sea, related to the water, related to the routines of fishing. So there are so many differences between all of these styles. There is not one difference. There is not one big separator. All of them speak of specific places in Egypt, and all of them reflect specific peoples of Egypt, okay? I don't even know if the word peoples exist in English, but you know, you understand what I mean. So there is this big difference between the folklore and the Oriental dance, which is Oriental dance is so much more universal and transversal, and you will see it all over Egypt, and it is like the basic, most primary instinctive language of Egyptians. And then you have the more specific, localized styles that I mentioned. Okay, those are the main folkloric styles. Now, what else do I have for you? Who is Mahmoud Reda? And what is the Reda Troupe? This is a big question. I'm gonna try to make it short and clear. It's hard for me to answer this in a short way, but I will try. Why are they so important? Okay, so speaking about Mahmoud Reda is a very emotional thing for me, guys, because I have learned from Mahmoud Reda, I have worked from Mahmoud Reda, but most of all, I have had the privilege of enjoying Mahmoud's friendship and support. So my relationship with Mahmoud Reda is above all a very personal, heart-centered relationship. So it's hard to speak about him objectively, okay? Because for me, he's my grandfather. I'm seeing the comments here. Hi, Joanne. Good morning, dear. Feel welcome to share your questions here, okay? So, who is Mahmoud Reda? Objectively speaking, he's considered the father of Egyptian folklore. He created a side, by the side of his brother, Ali Reda, the iconic Reda Troupe, which still exists, by the way. The Reda Troupe remains active, sponsored by the Egyptian government. So they are the national folkloric troupe of the Egyptian government. This comes from the days of Mahmoud, so it did not start like a government troupe. It started like a family business, an independent project, but eventually the Egyptian government took over and offered to sponsor Reda Troupe with everything that it brought of benefits and everything that it brought of problems, okay? So Mahmoud is the father of Egyptian folklore. He's the creator of the most representative, the most important, the most iconic, the most pioneering troupe of dance in Egypt. And notice that I'm saying troupe of dance, not Egyptian folkloric troupe, okay? Because I consider there is nobody else like Mahmoud in Egypt, in any other area of dance. Nobody managed to do what he did within the Egyptian folklore, okay? And and his brother, Ahmed, they made the research in Egypt to start with. They went all over Egypt collecting data, okay? They collected data on the different folkloric styles, the different musical styles, the different clothing, the different dialects, the different steps and landscapes and people. They made like this, I would call it anthropological research in Egypt, collecting material that would become the base for the Reda Troupe, okay? And in the Reda Troupe, he created not only tableaus of dance with different folkloric styles that were never seen on stage before, okay? He was the first one who put them on stage. And I don't mean any stage, I mean the biggest stages of the world, the most respected, important stages of the world. Something that was totally unknown so far became respected and presented in the biggest stages of the world. That was Mahmoud's legacy, or part of it. And he also created tableaus telling the stories of the people of Egypt. These different stories of these different people or peoples. The people of the desert, the people of the Nile, the people of Cairo, the people of Alexandria, the people of Nubia, the people of Said, the Saidi area. He fell in love with his own country and with the characters and the culture of his own country and all the diversity that exists in it. And he put all of that variety, all of that richness, all of that diversity, all of those characters that were not considered material for art, he put them in the biggest, most respected stages of the world. All right, so this is nothing short of miraculous. And if you know Egypt, you will think even higher of Mahmoud for having succeeded at this, because Egypt is not a country where the dance of Egypt is valued. Even today, it is not valued. It is not considered an art form. So I can only imagine how hard it was for Mahmoud to make this. Obviously, we're talking about the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s, where Egypt was ruled with a nationalistic spirit, which meant Mahmoud caught the transition between the Egypt of the English of King Farouk, that was a public puppet, yeah, a public dummy of the English, into the Egypt of Egyptians, ruled by Gamal Abdel Nasser initially. And obviously he, like many other artists, like Kulthum, for instance, like Abdel Wahab, they benefited from this nationalistic spirit. A nationalistic spirit that wanted to embrace and acknowledge and celebrate everything Egyptian. Okay, everything. So obviously Mahmoud benefited from that historical, political environment. Okay, but nonetheless, it is hard to bring something from zero, as it was with the case of Egyptian folklore, into the biggest stages of the world. And he did that. Aside from that, Mahmoud created something that I consider almost an impossible task, which is he brought respect to the dance. And then again, if you know Egypt, you know exactly what this means. I lived and performed in Egypt for almost 8 years. Before that, I had already studied in Egypt, so I knew Egypt quite well before I moved there to start my career. And I can tell you with all certainty that in Egypt, even nowadays, there is no respect for dancers and no respect for the dance, especially Egyptian dance, Oriental or folkloric. And Mahmoud managed to make their dance, the folkloric dance, and the dancers practicing it, respectable. He dignified it. He elevated the dance. Not only did he do the research that allows us nowadays to learn Egyptian folklore, not only did he do the work that allowed Egyptian folklore to be brought from the different sides of Egypt, different places of Egypt, to the biggest, most respected stages of the world, but he also managed to make the dance and the dancers respected. And this is wow. That's the only word that crosses my mind. It is wow. All right, it is extraordinary. Now, why is the Reda Troupe and Mahmoud Reda so important? Well, I think part of it is already answered. I've already told you the extraordinary feats Mahmoud Reda managed to achieve. But I also consider that Mahmoud Reda and the Reda Troupe are like the standards. They are the basis for all the folklore that we have available now in the world, for all the folklore that teachers teach around the world, for all the folklore that people are performing and loving and learning from and having fun with. Without Mahmoud Reda and the Reda Troupe that he and his brothers created, there would be no Egyptian folklore as we know it. I believe we would be ignorant till today of the dance of Nubia, of the dance of the Bedouin, of Saidi. We would be ignorant of Mambuti, of Skandarani, of the peoples that create and maintain and live from these folkloric styles. Without Mahmoud Reda and the Reda Troupe, our dance technique would have been much poorer, okay? Because dancers are not aware of it, but a lot of what we do in Oriental dance also comes from folklore. There is like this interconnectedness, this complementarity, okay? And how do I know this? Because when I moved to Cairo to start my career and I was already studying and performing Raqs Sharqi, I started studying with Mahmoud and then working with Mahmoud. All the years I was living in Egypt, I was also working and studying with Mahmoud. And I can tell you that I became a better Oriental dancer because of him. And I don't mean this just because he was such a perfect teacher to me. And when I say perfect, it's perfect, okay? He was the most generous, most sensitive, most supportive grandfather, friend, teacher. He was the most patient mentor I've ever seen in my life, incredibly patient with me, and of course, all of it contributed to my growth. But aside from that, if we see it purely from a technical point of view, what have I gained from studying Egyptian folklore? I have become a better Oriental dancer. That's it. So the Oriental dancer that I became, the choreographer that I became, the improviser that I became, could not have existed if I had not studied Egyptian folklore. In this case, I studied with Mahmoud face to face directly, but it doesn't matter if you study with Mahmoud Reda or if you study with someone who knows the legacy of Mahmoud Reda. The fact is that when you study with a teacher who knows Egyptian folklore, you become a better Oriental dancer, period. Okay? So it is very important, Mahmoud Reda, the Reda Troupe, not only in the sense of making us a better dancer, but also in the sense of bringing respect, dignity, and value to Egyptian dance and consequently to Egyptian culture. Right? Because when we value the dance, when we respect the dance, we respect the people who created the dance. We respect the culture who created the dance. Recently, I wrote a post about another post that I read, dismissing the importance of roots, the importance of tradition, the importance of knowing where this dance is coming from. And I found it revolting because obviously, everybody wants a shortcut, or most of us, not everybody, most of us want a shortcut. You know, there are a lot of students who don't want to know about the Egyptian culture, a lot of students who don't want to know about history, they don't want to know what is the context for this specific style, they just want a cute choreography and move on with it. Okay? And I would say there is a lot of students who are searching for that quick fix, not all of them, okay? But one thing is for sure, if we ignore the traditions, if we ignore the roots, if we ignore the folklore, there is no way we can dignify, respect, elevate, and perpetuate Egyptian dance. And I'm talking about Egyptian Oriental dance because things are connected, okay? So value the culture, value the dance, and value the people who provided this material, who provided this ancient wisdom, who provided these traditions and rituals that we can learn from and grow from, okay? Now, what else do we have here? How many folkloric styles exist in Egypt? I think I've also answered that question. So we have the Mambuti from the Suez Canal, that is like a fisherman's dance. We also have the Saidi and the Tartib. Tartib is a martial art which is practiced with music. So there is a component of music, but it's not a dance. It is a martial art. It is a fight with stick, with asaya. And from the Tartib came the Saidi dance for both men and women. By the way, created by Mahmoud Reda. Yes, thank you very much. And we have the Hagala, the Bedouin dance from the desert. And we also have the Nubian dance from Nubia. These are the main styles. We also have Skandarani with Malaya. And as I've already mentioned, this is not a folkloric style per se. It doesn't exist, Skandarani with Malaya, but Mahmoud created it. Mahmoud brought the Malaya. I don't have my Malaya with me now, so I cannot show it to you, but he brought the Malaya, which is a cloth. Traditionally, it's a black cloth that women used to wrap themselves around when they wanted to go to the street without covering up completely, okay? So they would have their clothing, the clothing that they were at home, and they would wrap themselves in the Malaya to go to the market, to the hammam, the public hammam or somewhere, without needing to change their clothing, okay? So Mahmoud created tableaus around the Malaya, around the way women, city women, yani Alexandria and Cairo women wore the Malaya. And he created a style, he created a language, he created an environment where the Malaya became a style, okay? But that is a creation from Mahmoud Reda. So these are the main styles that we work with. And let me take a look at your comments. Let me take a look at your comments. Hi, Morag. Hello, happy Sunday, my darling. Hi, Shan. I'm seeing my students here. How nice. Oh my God. Oi, Paula. Bom dia. Hello. Shean is saying, is it true that Mahmoud Reda added the balletic cabaret styles from the West and integrated with Egyptian folklore dance so that it looks more grand on stage? Okay, that's a great question. And actually, that's a question that I get asked a lot, and I did not write it down. I did not write it down. That's a beautiful question. Okay, so let me answer this question from Xian, okay? Very often, Mahmoud Reda is accused of not representing Egyptian folklore exactly as it is. I've heard this criticism from colleagues of mine who knew I was very close to Mahmoud, so of course they wanted to provoke me. So Mahmoud, he doesn't do exactly. Of course he doesn't do exactly, because you cannot transport, let's say, Bedouin dance as it is done in a Bedouin campfire in the desert. And by the way, I've been in Bedouin campfires by the desert, so I know exactly what I'm speaking about. You cannot transform that and bring it exactly as it is to the stage. You cannot grab that and transport it without adapting that language, that original language, to a language that fits the stage, that fits the language for a stage, okay? The same thing for the Saidi, for the Tahtib. And basically, in terms of Tahtib, Mahmoud made a transposition that is very, very close to what you see in an actual Saidi village, in an actual Tahtib fight, okay? So the level of transformation or alteration that Mahmoud inserted in each style depended on how much alterations were required, okay? So for instance, in Tahtib, it is very, very close to whatever you see in Luxor. If you see a tableau of Tahtib by the Reda Troupe, choreographed by Mahmoud Reda, you will see something very similar to what you would see in a village in Luxor, okay? So Mahmoud brought different languages together. So he started being a gymnastic, okay? A gymnastic. He went into competition. He competed as a gymnastic, as a swimmer. He was a sports person. He was a dancer who was trained in classical ballet, in jazz, in modern dance, in tap dance. He was a lover of musicals, Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire, all of those great musicals and dancers from Hollywood. He was a very eclectic person with a very wide and complete training as a gymnast, as a sports person, and also as a dancer. So naturally, he brought all of those skills, all of those languages to the forefront, and he used them in the creation of the Reda style, which is a combination of everything Mahmoud knew as a dancer and as a person and as a sportsman, and also everything that he discovered in his anthropological research all over Egypt. So what we call Reda style is a meeting, is a combination of the authentic folkloric languages that you find in Egypt, in different parts of Egypt, with the skills and knowledge of Mahmoud Reda, as well as his sensibility, his creativity, and the way he believed was a good way of representing the people of each style. Because, and this is something a lot of people don't know, I remember Mahmoud telling me this many times, and I always felt emotional. He would tell me, Joana, my work is about my people. It's about the people of Egypt. It's not about the dance even. I always wanted to represent my people in a beautiful, poetic, artistic way because I love Egypt, and he loved Egypt. Oh, I'm getting emotional now. Woo! What if I cry? I cannot cry. Cannot cry right now. Okay. Breathe. So, all the tableaus, everything he did was a homage to people of Egypt. It was an homage to the different people of Egypt, not only the people of Egypt, the different people of Egypt. It was an homage to the Bedouins, an homage to the Saidi people, an homage to the Cairo folks, to the Skandarani folks, an homage to the Falahin by the Nile, an homage to the Nubians. Mahmoud created a language that was a mix between the bases he collected, these anthropological, folkloric bases that he collected, with everything that he knew, with a language that served the stage, with a language that communicated efficiently the identity or the many identities of the people of Egypt. So what he is accused of, and then again I heard that many times from other dancers who knew about my close relationship with him, that he was not very authentic or that he twisted Egyptian folklore. It's simply, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, it is simply ridiculous, okay? Because if you know the folklore that he collected, and then if you know his work, you will know exactly what he did. He did not distort anything, or he did not lose the core of those folkloric styles. He actually elevated them. He gave them a body, he gave them a solid foundation, and he gave them a space where they could be seen and respected and celebrated, okay? So I think I answered your question, Shian. Morak says you can cry. No, I can't. I cannot cry, because if I start crying, I will not stop. It's terrible. And whenever I speak about Mahmoud Reda, it's a very tender point for me for so many reasons. So, cannot. Okay. So let's continue. Let's continue, guys. Keep the questions coming. Hi, Tima. Hello. Keep the questions coming. I'm gonna read the last question I have selected for this session. I'm trying to keep these sessions a little bit shorter because the other ones were so long. So, do I need to know the tradition and the culture behind the folkloric styles in order to dance them? Okay. Before I speak about this, before I answer this question, let me tell you, in the styles that I mentioned, there is another style that I don't consider a style per se, because I don't think it has enough vocabulary and a solid delimited identity, let's say. But it was a style that Mahmoud also considered the folkloric style, which is the style of the Falahin, okay, the peasants of Egypt. So I would not call it a style per se. I would call it an environment or a landscape. Some of the tableaus that Mahmoud Reda created for the Reda Troupe, they were focused on the Falahin, on the peasants, okay, working in the field, going to the Nile, grabbing the water, but it is not a style per se. There are a few movements that we identify as movements from the Falahin, very much similar to the movements of the Hawezi style, with Sagat and without Sagat, by the way. So Falahin sensibility and Falahin movement is connected with Hawezi movement and feeling, but I would not consider it a style per se, okay? It doesn't have enough vocabulary and enough juice to be considered a full style in its own right. But this is my opinion, okay? Also, Mahmoud did not call it a style. He called it like a landscape or a feeling, or he used it as a tableau to tell a story about the Falahin, okay? Just making that short because I was forgetting to mention this. Now, do I need to know the tradition and the culture behind the folkloric styles in order to dance them? My answer is absolutely yes. And then again, so many of you are gonna be annoyed with me. I know. I'm often the carrier of tough news because then again, we live in a very fast world, and we live in a quick fix world, and we live in a world where most of us are not interested in going deep into anything. We just want to add more information. We just want to keep consuming. But I think we have lost along the way our ability to go deep, to stay with the subject and to go deep into it. We jump from thing to thing. There are a lot of loose points. There are a lot of unfinished projects nowadays because we're losing our attention span. Okay, generally speaking, I'm not saying this is your case, but generally speaking, we're suffering from this lack of depth, okay? But, and this is just my opinion, it is just my work and my method. When I moved to Egypt to start my career there, one of the reasons why I did that was precisely because I wanted to go as deep as I could into the knowledge of Egyptian dance, Oriental and Folkloric. This was one of the main reasons for my big move to Cairo, okay? I wanted to know this language from the inside out, and I wanted to know it from the ground. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. So when I tell you that I learned Egyptian folklore from Mahmoud Reda, I'm not saying that was the only place where I learned Egyptian folklore. So even before I met Mahmoud Reda, I had already studied Saidi and Tahtib in Luxor. I had already danced with the Bedouins in the desert. I had already traveled to Aswan and saw Nubian dance. I had already had a lot of contact with Egyptian folklore firsthand, face to face. And that was one of the main motivations for my big move to Egypt, that I wanted to know the culture behind the dance. I wanted to know this language, as well as I know my own language, my Portuguese homeland language, okay? I wanted to know this craft as deep as I could. And of course, this is a little bit hardcore, you know, and I'm not saying that every dancer will go to Egypt and every dancer will want to go as deep as possible. But putting aside this extreme case, because I'm an extreme case, okay? I'm absolutely extreme. I believe that most students and dancers and teachers who are nowadays involved with Egyptian dance should have at least the curiosity to know a little bit about the cultural and historical background of the dance they're studying. Absolutely, yes. Will everybody go for it? Then again, no, because it is hard. It requires a teacher who knows. Okay, not every teacher knows the history and the culture and the identity of each style. Most teachers in this area know steps and movements and choreographies. They don't know more than that usually. So you cannot ask a teacher to teach you something they don't know, all right? And also because then again, it takes a little bit more of curiosity, a little bit more of ability to go in depth. And it also takes something that I find particularly important in today's world, which is a genuine desire to learn from other people and to learn from cultures that are not our own, to learn from religions that are not our own, to learn from ways of living that are not our own. When I tell my students, you learn Egyptian dance and you learn more than dance steps, what I mean is, you learn a culture, you learn a history, you learn a mentality, you learn a sensibility, but you also learn how to open your mind and open your heart to different civilizations, to different ways of living, to different perspectives on life, to different ways of operating as a human being. And this desire to open ourselves up to other people, to open ourselves up to the other, the distant, the exotic. This is something that, strangely enough, we don't have much of. Because we live in a global world where we are seemingly connected, but if someone disagrees with someone else, they're instantly considered enemies, which I find very strange. If someone sees life in a different way, usually you will see this position, this attitude of, if you're not with me, you're against me. If you're not one of mine, you're against me and mine. So you are the enemy. And this is not compatible with the globalized world. This is not compatible with a world where we are connected virtually, at least. In a world where we have never had so much information available. If I want to learn about Indian culture, today I will learn. If I want to know about flamenco or Japanese tea ceremony or a Mexican food or whatever, that knowledge is at the distance of a click. And nonetheless, how much of this globalization and this access to different cultures has actually opened my mind? How flexible am I and how respectful am I towards people I don't understand? towards cultures that are not my own, towards religions that are not my own. So when we learn Egyptian folklore, or when we learn Egyptian Oriental dance, Raqs al-Sharqi, you know, and again, this is my personal opinion and my method of teaching and my path, okay? It's not necessarily the opinion of every Egyptian dance teacher, and it's fine. I don't think anyone is right or wrong in this. I just think there are different approaches to dance and different approaches to teaching and different visions. So in my work, I like to bring a little bit of Egypt to my students, okay? For very personal and professional reasons. I'm not satisfied if I just drop a choreography over their head and I say, bye, see you next live. I'm not satisfied. That is not fulfilling to me. I don't feel that I'm accomplishing my mission, right? So it is a very personal point of view, this desire to bring the culture and the mentality with the steps, with the choreographies, with the musicality, with the dance technique, with the fancy improvisations and the fun physical work. For me, one thing cannot be separated from the other. And above all, I believe it cannot be separated because then again, we need to open ourselves up. And when you study Egyptian dance, folkloric dance, Oriental dance, you are forced to consider there is another culture, another world, another set of values, another religion or religions, another mentality, another sensibility, another way of doing things that you perhaps have never considered. And when you say yes to that new world, you say yes to an enlarged, expanded vision of life. And for me, this is it. This is it, you know, this is the best service that as a teacher and as a dancer I can provide. And this is the best way I can honor my love for Egypt. This is the best way. It's by bringing Egypt and a little bit of its soul to anyone who comes in contact with my work. Okay? So this is the last question I have selected. And again, I kept it short, very short. I will invite you guys to check our folkloric courses at our school, at Joana Saahirah's Online Dance School. Next weekend we have our Nubian Dance workshop, so I'm gonna also share the link to that workshop in the comments to the replay of this video. And if you watch the video on my YouTube channel, I'm gonna also include it in the description box below the video, okay? And before I say farewell, let me see what our beautiful participants are saying. Let me see. Morak says, I have not been to Egypt and you are bringing it to me, and I'm more than grateful that you care about the legacy. Oh, Morak, thank you. Morak is one of our students at Joana Saahirah's Online Dance School. Thank you. I'm happy to know that you notice that you feel it. Lucia says, where to start if a teacher wants to introduce Egyptian folklore to students? Do you have some good advice? Yes, I have. What is the most important minimum that should every student know about Egyptian folklore? Okay, so Karachi says, Salamu alaikum. Alaikum salam ya habibti. Izayik. Alhamdulillah, tamam. Okay, let me answer Lucia. Lucia has two questions. So where to start if a teacher wants to introduce Egyptian folklore to students? Let me start here, okay? Let me start. Hi, Stunil. Stunil says, I love your courses and I love having you at our courses, Stunil. Welcome. And thank you for being here, okay? So where to start if you want to introduce Egyptian folklore to students? I believe this is very much connected to the method of each teacher and what you have taught them before, right? Do your students have bases of Oriental dance, Raqs al-Sharqi, or not? Because this also alters the way you start. What are you gonna teach them first, okay? Depending on what they already have, right? So usually I don't start with Egyptian folklore. I start with Raqs al-Sharqi and I start from the foundations. Also the foundations according to my method, okay? So for instance, at Joana Saahirah's online dance school, we have our new Joana Saahirah signature course. We're about to launch the second edition very soon, okay? So if you're interested, join our newsletter and you will know all about the signature course. The signature course is about authentic Egyptian dance, self-discovery and empowerment from the ABC, from the start, from zero until mastery and professional level for the ones who want to go for it, okay? So I usually start with the basis of Oriental dance, and at some point I start introducing folklore, okay? I usually start with Saidi. That's the first style that I introduce, or sometimes Bedouin. Bedouin, because Bedouin is a little simpler, it has less vocabulary, it is a little bit more similar to Raqs Sharqi. So depending on my mood and depending on the context, I will either start with Bedouin or I will start with Saidi. Saidi without asaya, without stick first, okay? Because I want them to be able to be comfortable with the music, to the rhythm, and also with the steps and the posture before they add the prop. Okay, and this is a big mistake so many teachers do. They start immediately with the asaya, and dancers are going crazy with the prop because they don't have the minimum of the basic technique. And you add the asaya, it's a mess, it's chaos. So a prop should be added when the basis of the technique are already in the student, when I am comfortable with at least the basic movements. Then I can add a prop. Asaya, sagat, veil, whatever the prop you are working with, okay? So I am not an advocate for going full on with asaya because I know the result is disastrous. So I usually start with Bedouin, which is simpler, or with Saidi without asaya, without stick, okay? I may also start with Nubian because Nubian is relaxed, is soft, it introduces a very feminine sensibility that will serve them well in the Oriental. So I don't have a fixed formula. There is not one specific style that I always teach first. It really depends on the group I have. It depends of my mood. It depends of the context. If I'm teaching at my school, if I'm teaching in a private coaching program, or if I'm teaching at a festival. And I have in consideration how much these students already have in terms of dance training, all right? And if they have nothing, if they're coming from zero, then obviously I'm gonna choose the style of folklore that is the less demanding, okay? It all comes with increasing the level of difficulty, all right? But then again, I think that depends so much of the teacher and the method that you use, huh? What else? Lucia asks, what is the most important minimum that should every student know about Egyptian folklore? Okay, so it is a hard question to answer. What is the minimum? What about what is the maximum? Okay, I don't like to speak about the minimum, but I like to think of a curriculum. Okay, so I can give you a fingerprint, for instance, of what I'm doing in my school, Joana Saahirah's online dance school. We have 2 courses of Saidi at the school. A new one will come soon, a little bit more advanced. So we have the basic language of Saidi, Reda style, and then we have Saidi with asaya, which I call the path of the warrior. And there will be another one. We have the Nubian Dance workshop coming next week. Okay, and it's going to be available at the school. I also have the Skandarani with Malaya programmed and Bedouin dance programmed. So I would say that the minimum of the minimum, and I don't like this word minimum, but I mean like a basic curriculum of folklore would be Saidi with asaya and without asaya, would be Bedouin dance, would be Nubian dance, and the Skandarani with Malaya, not because it is a standard traditional folkloric style as I mentioned, but because it is a very important creation by Mahmoud Reda, a creation that will inform you about a very specific world in the Egyptian identity, the world of Egyptian women, and the world of femininity in the world of Egyptian women, okay? So for me, this would be like the basic curriculum, all right? Aside from Oriental dance, Raqs Sharqi, and that includes classical Raqs Sharqi, modern raqs al-sharqi, raqs al-baladi, that includes sha'abi, that includes tabla solos, all of these subcategories that we can divide raqs al-sharqi on, okay? What else do you have here? Morag says the signature course rocks. Yeah, because you are in it, so you're part of it. Morag, you're part of the magic. You're part of it. Okay, guys, so I hope this was helpful. Then again, I'm not going to make it too long because I'm trying to keep these sessions shorter and juicier. I hope this gave you a little input and a little bit more information about Egyptian folklore and why it is so important. It may not be trendy, but it is essential. And then again, it makes you a better Oriental dancer. So even if you don't have any other reason to learn Egyptian folklore, learn it because you will become a better dancer overall, okay? And last but not least, I'm going to invite you once more to check our courses at Joana Saahirah's Online Dance School. Very soon we're going to have bundles with several courses stitched together and very beautiful promotional prices for those bundles. And that will include the Saidi bundle that is going to be amazing. And I'm going to invite you to join our free and fabulous newsletter. If you want to be a part of our world, if you want to receive news about our school, our events, my upcoming podcast, if you want to receive the freebies and the gifts that I only offer my inside community, okay? So you're going to find the link to join our free and fabulous Joana Saahirah's World newsletter either in the comments to the replay of this video, if you're watching it on Facebook, or in the description box below the video if you are going to watch this replay in my YouTube channel, okay? I want to say thank you once more, guys, for attending these live sessions. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your engagement, for making this work meaningful, okay? Because it only exists also because of you. You're here, you're receiving, you're engaged, you're interested, and that is the fire that keeps the artist and the teacher in me going, okay? So thank you from my heart for all this love, all this life, all this exchange, all right? I will see you soon. Until then, you're gonna receive all my love and my usual kiss. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Happy Sunday, guys. See you soon.